Good evening, good evening, good evening. And I'm feeling good. Gregory Porter, and I'm feeling good. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Unapologetically Keith. Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9:30 to 10 o'clock. But some nights we will go later depending on how the chat traffic is going. So I want to say thank you for tuning in. Let's do a little housekeeping first. Remember, I am streaming on, well, not remember, it just may be your first time watching. I am streaming on Facebook Live, Periscope, and YouTube Live, and LinkedIn. So I do not get to see everyone that is watching, but how will I know if you're there? Simply show up in the chat, something in the chat room, and I will acknowledge you. I will definitely shout you out. That is how I like to interact with everybody. So if you let me know in the chat room that you are there, I will gladly call you out, say what's up to you as we get into what we're talking about today, which is dealing with grief. And hey, Keita, what's going on, love? How are you? All right, that is what we're dealing with tonight, actually. There we go. How's it going, Queen? So what I want to do is that, 2020 has been a very difficult year. As you guys know, I lost my mother on the 25th of June, as well as just so many different deaths this year that I've dealt with personally, as well as I know other folks who are coming off of the deaths of other loved ones. And I think anytime that you talk about, let's get some more light here. Anytime that you're talking about loss and you're going through the grieving process, it is a very, very difficult thing to deal with. So what I'm going to do this week is we're going to break this into a couple of different parts, because I want to be able to go through all this in a way that I can make sure I go through all of the steps. So here's what we're going to talk about this week. We're going to break it down Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. How to deal with the grieving process, what emotional and physical symptoms of grief look like. And then we'll finish up with the 5 stages of grief. And actually, I might even, because the reason why I'm doing the last one last is because I want to talk, there's a lot that goes with the 5 stages of grief, because I actually used that when I was a dean in New York with dealing with kids in the hallway, and just dealing with kids who are going through some real difficult things, and just as well as dealing with folks who have lost someone. So allow me to reintroduce myself. I am Keith K.L. Belvin, a crisis specialist. I deal with different crisis situations and people who are in need of somebody to speak to, in need or going through something that needs somebody to be there for them. This is what I do. And so, and who do I do it for? Well, I normally work with children. I work with older adults. I work with everybody, but I do this for people who feel that they need somebody who will understand, who's going to listen to them. And this is what I do. This is actually my form of ministry. So I just share that with you. So we're going to get started and hopefully not have any problem. But again, let me just say this too. If for any reason, I know because of the weather has been crazy, if for any reason I get cut off, you just have to come back and there'll be another session. It'll be basically almost like a second part. So if we get cut off, just log in and I'll be back up in a couple of minutes. Okay. So what I want to deal with tonight is how to deal with the grieving process. And I'll go through, hey, Toya, what's going on? Good to see you. Good to see you. So I want to talk about how to deal with the grieving process. But I changed it. You know what? I want to talk about how to deal first, because I was going to go through the symptoms, but I want to talk about how to deal, because I think we know the symptoms, but I really want to go through how we deal, because I think well, not I think, I know. It drives me crazy when other people want to tell people how to grieve. And it bugs me out is that how can you tell somebody how to feel about someone that they loved that's no longer here for them? And we all have a set of feelings assigned to every person in our life. Now, for some, we assign very, very minuscule emotion. And for others, our whole lives are wrapped around them, whether it's children, whether it's a sibling, whether it's a husband or wife, whoever. So when somebody else attempts to say to somebody, you should do or you should feel this way, biggest mistake you can make in the world. T to the Y, what's going on, brother? Thank you for popping in. I was just about to say, are you guys with me? Do y'all understand where I'm coming from with that? Because now, like I said, I always use myself as the guinea pig, but I'll use myself. Moment of transparency. I haven't cried for the loss of my mom. Now, some people go, what? You didn't care about her? No, it's not that. That when I explain that, and when I say that I had made my peace with the idea that I might get that call, I got right here doing a live show, Thursday the 25th. I got that call right here and forgot to turn off the camera. So everybody that was on that night got to watch me listen to my sister losing it and telling me that our mother was actually going through this, and that later on, after I signed off, my mother had actually passed a few minutes later. But anybody watching the Thursday show here with me actually got to go through that with me. And I appreciate all the condolences. I really do. So when I say to people that I made peace with the idea, so then when I actually got the news, I was prepared for it. And the reason why I wasn't so blown away emotionally is because when I thought about it, I had attempted to, for 4 years, that's how long I've been down here in Delaware, to try to get my mom to move to come live with me here. Because I felt if I could get her out of the city and to come live with me here in the country, I thought it would extend her life. She chose no. And so she's no longer with us now. You know, we can always go back and forth over what it is. So for me, that's just how I do it. But actually what I'm going to walk you through, this is why tonight I wanted to go through the 6 different ways on how to deal with the grieving process. And all of us handle things differently, but I just want to go through the 6 that I research on that I think can help, because we're all different and we all have quirks about us and things about it. I tend to be humorous and I tend to joke and laugh at times that people would deem inappropriate, but that's me. That's how I deal with supreme negativity. And I know that it makes people feel a certain way, so I tend to try to distance myself from that environment because I know how I'm going to act, and I don't want someone taking it the wrong way because I know they don't understand me. Does that make sense to you guys? In the chat room, if you're with me, if you understand what I'm talking about. We're going to get right into this number 1 here. Number 1 up, if you're with me, you understand where I'm coming from, because we all deal with loss. We have no choice. But how we deal with it is important. Let me see if one y'all feeling me. Let me see who's with me tonight. I know Keita was on. I know Toya, and I just saw T to the Y. And T to the Y, and you must add the Jones is here. And my condolences to you, Brother Jones. All right. Toya says right with you. Okay, so I still got you. All right. As long as I know at least one person there, we good. We're gonna talk about one right here. So guys, the first thing that you can do, or that you can help somebody do who's going through the grieving process, help them to acknowledge their pain. As a crisis specialist, this is one of the first things that I do, is I have to get the person or couple or whoever I'm dealing with to acknowledge what's wrong, acknowledge the pain, acknowledge the hurt, acknowledge the loss, Acknowledge the anger. Acknowledge whatever it is, but acknowledge what is causing the pain. It doesn't mean that it's going to end. I'd be gifted if I could do that. But by acknowledging it, we now can start the fight, the pushback. We can start to try to recover. And it goes along the same lines with anybody who deals with any type of addiction. You know that acknowledgement is the first pathway to recovery. You have to acknowledge that you have a problem. It's like anything. You have to acknowledge. I'm a big guy. I had to acknowledge that as much as I don't want to work out, as much as I enjoy eating, I can't eat everything that I like, and I got to work out whether I want to or not, if I plan on trying to be here. So this is what it is. So we have to acknowledge our pain. And that's hard, because often to acknowledge our pain means that we actually have to take in and consider the loss. And some people ain't ready to do that. Some people will just, nope, I'm not, nope, I don't want to talk about it, nope, I don't want to deal with it, nope. And I get it. And I don't press, I don't push, unless I think the person is doing something unhealthy to themselves or may harm themselves or others. Then I might step in and try to hedge them in a different direction, because I don't want to see somebody harmed while still trying to deal with the loss of somebody. And definitely during this COVID time, where death is prominent and a major part of our today, it is very difficult, because I've had to deal with 34, if you want to include my mother, 35 deaths since March. And it has not been easy when people that you love are no longer here, people that you know are no longer here, or people that you love are trying to explain to you that their significant other is no longer here, or their child is no longer here, and to offer some words of comfort. And it is difficult, extremely difficult. But definitely, number one is to acknowledge the pain. That is how we can start to fix things. Here's number two, guys. Moving on to number two. Okay. Accept that grief can trigger many different and unexpected emotions. Now, this one is very important because it goes to what I'm saying. Often we don't consider that. Thanks, Toya. Thank you. Often we don't consider that the pain, that the grief is going to trigger. You may see somebody acting totally out of character. You may just see them break down, laugh, joke. Here's another one too. You may see them start to drink when they never really drank. You may see them act in a sexual way, become hypersexual, and you go, what is going on? All this can happen. The brain is in a bad way. The body is in a bad way. The person's spirit is in a bad way when they're trying to get a handle on grief. And in some ways, they will just give in to the negativity that is going on inside them. And I want you to really understand this. I really do. I want you to understand that you're not crazy if you're having these crazy thoughts, these crazy feelings and everything when you're trying to get yourself through whatever is bothering you. The key is not to give into it completely, that you do something to harm yourself. We want to try to avoid that if possible. All right. We want to try to avoid being in a situation where we literally move ourselves into a direction where we create a bigger problem from the one that we're already dealing with. All right. Give me a one in the chat room, and we're going to go on, or give me a number 3. We're going to move on to number 3, another 3 in the chat room. So I know that you're with me. I know Toya's rocking out tonight. T to the Y, are you still with me? And Keita, did you jump in and jump out? You still there too? Like I said, I'll rock if it's just one person. Let me see who I got with me. And anybody else that's watching, by all means, we're talking about grief tonight, how to deal with the grieving process. There you go. T to the Y is there. We're talking about how to deal with the grieving process. You're watching Unapologetically Keith. And I know this is a somber, thank you, Toya. Thank you, T to the Y. I know this is a somber thing. I know some folks may not tune in to deal with the heavy stuff, but I would not be true to what I do if I didn't deal with the things that I know can cause various emotions. So this is part of what I do for a living. And so I wanted to bring this to the table. Okay, number 3. All right. Please, please, please circle this one. Understand that your grieving process will be unique to you. Oh my gosh, I want folks to understand that every individual, like they have fingerprints, has a way that they grieve that is uniquely theirs. Now, it may mirror what somebody else does. It may sound like somebody else sounds. It may look like somebody else looks. But in the end, every person has a unique way that they grieve. Some people just want to sit in silence. Some people want to dance and make a whole lot of noise. Some people just want to sit and watch TV and act like the whole world is not there. Some people want to take off all their clothes and just lay in the bed and don't move. Whatever it is, that's okay. It's yours. Vanessa, I'm a grief coach. Let's contact. Okay? Definitely. I'm a crisis specialist. So I look forward to that. Just send me an inbox, whatever you like. Okay. Okay. But I peeped how you just dropped your whole thing there when you said let's connect. You could have did that in my inbox, but okay, I won't delete that. I'll let it rock. That's hard to remember. Some folks will try to impose their way. Grief is going to be the same as yours. That's the whole point right there. That's it right there, Toya. That is it right there. But Vanessa, please post that in my inbox so I can have it later and we can definitely talk. It's no problem. But that is it right there, Toya, is that people forget that their grieving process is unique and people will try to squeeze you into a box. And we do that to others as well because we don't know how to handle it. So well, I did this. You know, when my mother died, I'm telling other people how you dealt with what you dealt with. That is not dealing with them. You have to deal with the person and just let them deal, but keep them safe. They are not in their right position. They are not where they need to be. And it is our job, if we're trying to help, is to move them into a nice, safe, and comfortable place as much as possible. Or if it is you, understand you are not where you need to be and understand that it is okay to feel the way that you feel. It is yours. If you need help, though, then it goes back to number one of acknowledging it and then getting the help that you need. That's where someone like me comes in as a grief specialist. I'm repeating you, Vanessa, as a crisis specialist. I forgot my what's name. Appreciate you. As a crisis specialist, what I do. Got you. Okay. So moving on to number 4. Put a 4 in the chat room if you're with me. Let's go. Put a 4 in the chat room. We'll move on to number 4. And this actually speaks to what I just mentioned. Actually, we can go there. Let me put up number 4 for you. All right. Now, this is something that it is very difficult to get people to do, but you actually need to. And that is seek out face-to-face support from people who care about you. But here's the thing. And when I studied that, when I looked at that earlier, right? And I thought about that when I said, you know what? That's cool too. But we cannot disregard the social media aspect of what we're doing like right now. Because Zoom is how I do my counseling sessions, right? So if because of COVID, you can't go out and be in direct contact with somebody. So to that, when I would add seek a face-to-face, but if this is where it has to be because of the pandemic that is going on, this is what you do. Because you can't, and it's one of the reasons, like when people ask me, how come I didn't travel to New York for my mother's funeral and for, hey, what's going on, Flex, tonight? When people ask me, how come I didn't travel to New York for my mother's services and my mother's burial, because they wanted to have it on 2. And I wasn't coming to New York to stay in New York for 2 days. I wasn't going to place my family in that situation when I had asked my to have it on 1 day. They said what they were doing. I said, okay, you made your choice. I'm making mine. I'm not coming. And the reason why is even though I love my mother and I would love to be able to say goodbye, I'm not stuck on the closure thing. I don't need it. I'm not going to place my wife and daughter in a situation where we come into a city that has numbers of COVID to say goodbye to somebody who's no longer here and then risk where I have not been held up house for 20 weeks or 20 weeks or whatever it is and doing all this work from home to now turn around and go and expose myself simply to say goodbye to somebody who can't hear me. Now that is me. Now I understood that there were going to be some people upset about my decision. Okay, such is life. And the reason being is I know what my responsibilities are. And as much as I know other people would benefit from me being there, my first responsibility is to my family. So I made my peace with the Lord. I had already made my peace with my moms, and I was okay with telling folks I will not be there. And we'll just go from there. And if that causes somebody to no longer want to speak to me, okay, I'll keep praying for them. Because faith plays a role in this too, that aspect, okay? But seek face-to-face support. Now, this is where your faith comes in big, guys. You can seek out a crisis specialist like myself. You can seek out psychologists if you have connections with one, or you can seek out your religious figures and other folks at your church who you believe can help you. But as you see what it says there, from support from people who care about you, other family members, because other family members understand how much you cared about the person that you lost. Or you can be that for somebody else, but somebody who cares, face-to-face contact, because again, what it does, it reiterates to that person that the world is not coming to an end. It lets them know, yes, that person is gone, but I'm still here. Other people are here. We're here. We got you. And then just sit quietly. Don't keep saying, are you okay? Are you okay? You okay? You okay? Stop. No, they're not okay. They're not. Just ask, did you eat? Or go get them something to eat. Make sure that they have fed. Make sure that they have something to drink. Make sure if all they want to do is rest, well, make sure you guard the door. He's sleeping, she's sleeping, and guard the door. And then go inside and just say, I'm here. Or if they want to talk and if they want to reminisce, let them reminisce. Just make sure they're safe. Make sure you're safe if it's you, the person that's going through it. Because in the end, you'll get through. You will, but you're not going to realize it at that moment. It's hard. And I know not everybody deals with it the way I deal with it. My personality is quirky like that. I think that's why God made me who he made me. That's why I'm a crisis specialist. I'm an empath. I can absorb the emotions of others and disperse them later on. But at that moment, I can absorb a lot to let that person be able to find their balance. That's what I do. Moving on to number 5. Let's see who's still with me. We got Flex here. I hate nagging. You hold it. Let me tell you something, Ty. Ty said, I hate the nagging. How are you holding up? And are you okay question. You know what? You know the hard part of that, Ty, is it's coming from a good place. It's just that most people don't realize how much that annoys the person who's hurting. Because here's what people don't. Now, this is the psychological part. Every time you ask somebody what happened, if they didn't tell you, or how are you doing, you're causing a person to possibly replay the whole situation back in their head, which then creates the whole process of emotions all over again. Have you ever noticed, you go, how you doing? Person starts going, I'm okay, and then they break down. It is because you have sent them back into this cycle, this spiral, and you don't want that. Are you hungry? You good? You want something to eat? Boom, let's go, and leave it alone. You're not hungry? Well, I'm gonna get you something to eat anyway. I'm gonna leave it here. Just when you're ready, you go ahead and eat. Just get it. It's cold, and all of a sudden you see they're not warming up. Get them the blanket. Don't ask, do you want a blanket? Just get it. They'll either kick it off and then just sit there and relax with them. Just chill, but don't push. Don't force yourself to do anything, or don't force them to do anything unless it's where they're making themselves unsafe or the others around them unsafe. Then you have to step in because you don't want another tragedy. Thank you for the 5, Toya. I'm moving on. We're going to move on to number 5, guys. I appreciate longer than 10 o'clock. I believe that today. So I'm going to stay on a little bit longer. All right, here we go. Number 5. Support yourself emotionally by taking care of yourself physically. Now, this one is an interesting one because years ago when I was in the classroom, I used to tell the kids that a good workout will help you deal with your crisis, your grief. The kids looked at me like I was crazy. Yes, because when you work out, your body gives off endorphins. Those endorphins are designed to help the muscle relax. Also, your body gives off dopamine when you're working out, as well as adrenaline. All of those can help push you past some of that negativity that you're feeling. It can act like an instant kick to help you get through. And you can work out some of that frustration. You can beat on, like, listen, we've seen many movies where a person starts beating on a heavy bag, a person goes out for a run, a person does whatever, they beat the anger out, whatever, to try to get it out. Well, honestly, that actually works. The body is triggered by activity, and it gives off certain chemicals that will help the body relax or help the body hype up. Whatever it is, it will help you get through some of what you're dealing with. Also, it's a great way to get away from everybody too. Just throw on some of your earbuds and go for that run, go for that walk, get a good workout in, just to wear yourself out a little bit, just to be able to take a deep breath afterwards. And we all know that feeling that we get after we work out, when you sit down and you just, and you're trying to catch your breath. That's a good time to be able to relax. It also helps you sleep, which is going to be a very, very difficult thing, dealing with the loss, and you're dealing with grief, and you're dealing with crisis. It's another way to just give the body a chance to be okay. Now, understand that when you suggest that to somebody, they may look at you like, I don't want to work out, away from me. Just accept it. You made the offer. Because again, the goal is to try to get them to make a move. If you force it and now they're fighting with you, it can become unsafe very quickly. You don't want that. You guys still with me? Who's still with me here? Did I lose anybody as we get ready to go to the last one, number 6? Who's still with me? Shout out to Toya, shout out to Ty, shout out to Flex. Shout out to Vanessa, if I said that right. Thank you. Great to have you here. And did I miss? I think. Oh, and Keita. I remember Keita came in earlier. T to the Y says, I like number 5. My old job, my personal and professional self-care. My personal and professional self-care is to go to the kids' gym class and either work out or play basketball. Let me tell you something, Ty. Let me tell you something. When I started teaching New York City Department of Education in 1998. I started in Manhattan with working emotionally disturbed kids in 1995. So I want to say 99. Yeah, 99 was the first student that I lost. No, 98. 99 was the second student that I lost. 99, one of the female students, and I'll go to number 6 in a second, Toya. Thank you. I saw you posted it. 99, I lost a female student. She was murdered. And I was broken up. I was a second-year teacher in the building that I was in Canarsie, but I lived in Canarsie at the same time. Canarsie, Brooklyn, guys. If you're not from New York, I was in Canarsie, Brooklyn. I lived in Canarsie, Brooklyn, and I taught in Canarsie, Brooklyn. And the young lady I had just seen a couple of months before up at the train station, I was telling her she needs to get up off this train station late at night. She needs to be home, but I know that she was a young lady that was out in the streets and she was doing a lot of things she shouldn't have been doing at 13, going on 14. I know she was 14. I remember her mother and father just not having a handle on how to reach her, how to talk to her, whatever. So then we found that she had been murdered, and she had been murdered in such a gruesome way. It was just very difficult to deal with it. I remember going into the gym and just shooting around with the kids, and I needed to just kind of work out a little bit. So I was already coaching. Way to go, Flex. Flex says he works out to alleviate stress and worry. And that's why exercise is one of the most fantastic things you can do, Flex. But even more so when you're dealing with grief. And I just felt like that time with the kids reiterated to me that there was other children that I had to try to save, but also just to get myself together. Also, I like to go for long walks. I remember going to Canarsie Park, and I had on my headphones, and I remember telling I'll be back. I just got to get my head together, because this now was the second year in a row that I lost a student. Now, I didn't know that the next years I would lose a kid each year. I lost 7 years, excuse me. My first 7 years in the New York City Department of Education, I lost 7 students in a student. And the worst was going to a mother of a young man that I was trying to mentor. So hard to keep him off the streets. I remember going to the funeral home and telling her, I'm so sorry that I did what I could to keep him off the streets. And she said, I know, Mr. B, I know you did. but I can't worry about that right now. I got 5 kids, 5 other kids I got to take care of. And I remember 2 years later when his sister was sitting in my class, I still had the mural on my board, and she was sitting with his picture right behind her. And I remember looking over and saying to myself, God, I didn't think how insensitive that was. I went over and I whispered to her, do you want me to take that down if that's going to make you feel uncomfortable? And she said, no, I like seeing my brother's picture up there. Plus, I remember all the things you do for him. He used to tell me how much he liked your class and how much he liked you. And I remember trying to teach that period, and it was so hard. I was trying back to tears because who knew that 2 years later I would have his sister sitting in my class trying so hard to still do the things that I was doing. And it was just like, and you start to worry, like, is this mattering if we're losing kids? But you have to fight through that, because at the end of the day, there's always somebody that can be helped. Now, moving on to number 6, guys, the last one for tonight is recognize the difference between grief and depression. Now, this is a tricky one. Now, this is one that I'm going to be honest with you, that if you have not studied, and if you're not a person that works in this area on a regular basis, you might not be able to figure that out. So I don't want you to climb into that bag too deep. But just understand that there's some grief is momentary. Some pain is some feelings. The feeling of grief for some people is momentary. And in some, they start to fall off a cliff into a pit of depression. So now other aspects of negativity are growing and permeating inside a person. And you need to understand which is going on at the time, because each one has to be handled subtly different. I'll deal with a person who's suffering from depression differently than I will someone who's dealing with grief, because depression, now we may have to do a lot of other interventions to bring them back. We may even have to consider medication. We may have to do a whole lot of other therapeutic things to bring them back to a position of balance. Homeostasis is what it's called, is the body's ability to become neutral. And that's what that's called. The body is always fighting to become balanced, always. And when it's off and you're heading in the wrong direction, it can end to early death. Just like optimal health is when your body is firing on all cylinders at the right time, at the right place, mentally, physically, and socially. That's when you have optimal health. But the body is always trying to get to a neutral position. So understanding the difference between grief and depression is critical, because you may sit and go, oh my God, I just can't seem to get this person over their grief. And it ain't grief. That they've now slipped into a pit of depression, and it can get worse if the brakes are not applied. So you need to start to pay attention if some of the things that you're noticing are a little bit different than those 6 things that I mentioned on the list today, and things are getting worse, and you're starting to see them not wash, you're starting to see them not care for themselves, you're seeing for them maybe starting to harm other people, you see them starting to self-medicate. There's a lot of things that you got to pay attention to that may not just be grief. Also, you heard me mention about hypersexuality. Often with grief, people will tend to do things sexually that you may not be comfortable or used to seeing them do. Just like with depression, a person may get into a pit of depression where they are doing things with people, go, oh my God, what is he doing? What is she doing? And that's another thing too, is that all of a sudden you have to pay attention to that, because that's what I mean by making sure that they're not harming themselves or others. Sadly to say, there are a lot of people who, when dealing with grief or depression, have inadvertently gave themselves diseases or other things simply because they made very poor choices, because they were unable to control themselves or be able to deal with themselves. So I hope that as you looked at the 6 on this list here, now, oh, no doubt. Oh, listen, Toya, listen, that's a great question. Thank you, sir. Question. So I'll put it up on the Westing so folks can see what Toya asked. That's a great question, Toya. Thank you, by the way. Toya asked, is there a chance that grief turns into depression? Yes. That is the reason why we have this list on how to deal with the grieving process, because what we want to do, or what I can do, what anybody else can do, is we want to try to turn them around to come back to feeling okay. Because if grief is not dealt with, if the grief is left in a place too long, yes, it can become depression. Thank you so much. Toya said, I've seen dealt with grief and depression for a long time. I seen deal with grief, depression for a long time. Is that you've seen or dealt? Is you putting both? I want to make sure I got that right. You've seen and dealt with grief and depression for a long time. Okay, in yourself or with others, Toya? If you don't mind sharing, I know I'm being a little forward by asking, but I'm just responding to your statement. Because the one thing I can tell you is that I've dealt with folks who don't realize that the grief is turned into depression, and they're literally trying to function with the depression. And when they've reached out to sit down to talk, and we start carving back the onion of their emotions, I start to realize that there's a lot more pain than they were letting on when they said, Mr. Keith, can we get together? And now we got to try to repair that. I've seen in people. Okay, that's what I thought you were leaning into. I got you, sister. I appreciate it, Toya. And that's the thing that you have to understand is that often that slope is a very slippery one. That slope of recognizing the difference between grief and depression is a slippery one. It's okay. I got you. I'm not. I know. Trust me. If it wasn't for Tiff, my little would be tough in here. But that's a tough one because when you get to that point, that abyss is vast because it also has to do, Toya, and anybody and everybody else, Ty, and let me make sure I got everybody here. Vanessa. Okay, and then I know Nikita was here. The reason why that slope is slippery is because depending on who that person was that you lost. Now, I said this the other day, and I'll say it again. My basketball coach, when I was at York College, he said to us, 1987, he said to us, one of our teammates' mother had passed away. And he was saying to us as a team in the locker room, the only thing that you can do when your mother passed, he said, there's only two things that you can do. He said, you get stronger from it or you lose your mind because of it. He said, that's it, because it's your mom's. And at the time, I was like, of course, I'm young. It's 1987. I'm only 20 years old. Of course, I was like, I hear that because I'm not thinking that my mom is going anywhere anytime soon. And yes, it took 32 years later before I lost her. But yes, I'm stronger. Am I hurting? Yes. Am I sad that she's not here? Without question. But I'm stronger because I know who she left behind. I know what she expects from me. I know what I have to do to try to extend my own life and pray that the Lord grants me as many years as possible. And there's something to be learned about every person that we lose. And I want y'all to understand that is that grief can seem immeasurable. Grief can make us think that this whole world is filled with pain. It can make us feel like the whole world is ugly. And I understand why you would feel that way. But get this. God knows too. And I'm going to preach a little bit right now. God knows too. And so because of that, he made the world so vast that if you can pull your way through it, there's other people waiting on you to talk to you, waiting on you to hang out with you, waiting on you to treat you as if everything is okay. You know why? Because, well, hey, Patty. Welcome. Great to have you here on Periscope. Great to see you. Hope you're tapping that screen, Patty, giving some hearts there. I can't see them, but I'll check them out later on. Great to have you here. But understand that. And that with 7.4 billion people on this planet, it is easy to feel that when you're in the midst of grief, that you're the only person in the world feeling this way. Well, as I said to you earlier, yes, your grieving is unique. But here's the beautiful thing. The world is vast. And there's people out there waiting on your recovery, waiting on you to get back to being you because they need you to be you. That's the thing that most people don't realize, that like speck of dirt on the sand, that make up sand, we go, that little tiny speck means something? Yes, because when you add them with the other million specks, you now have a beach. And that beach now brings enjoyment to the people who use it. We're like those specks of sand. Individually, we may not believe that we're that important. But when we connect with others like ourselves, not only do we see our importance, there are people who will gain joy from us connecting with each other. So I want to say that because as a crisis specialist, it is my job to be able to help you see that the world is still waiting on you. Yes, you're hurting. Yes, like I said, number one, acknowledge the pain. We're going to acknowledge it. Yes, you're hurting. Hard to separate grief and depression. It's hard, but actually there's clearly a difference. And it's not as hard as you think, Patty. But there is a point, if we let the grief go on for too long, that when it starts to fall over into, it's like this. If you have a cut on your arm, right? The cut hurts. The cut hurts. But if you don't treat it and you leave that cut unattended, it can get infected. And the infected arm or the infected cut is way worse than when you first hurt it. Now, do they both hurt? Yes. But they hurt differently and they do different damage to the body. So if you deal with the cut, when you first get it, yeah, it's going to hurt. I'm not minimizing that. But if you deal with it, that cut can heal and eventually fade away. And the only thing left is the memory of. But if you let it get infected, a whole lot of things can happen. You might even lose the part of the body that's infected, could turn into something else, and you could become septic and possibly die. So yes, grief and depression is hard to separate, but actually if you deal with it at the moment, you can turn yourself around from the grief, that it doesn't have to become depression. That's why you reach out. Let me go back through these real quick. And thank you, Patty, for jumping in and joining us. And thank you to everybody that's here to Unapologetically Keith. Very true. And at some point it does change. Yes, it does. But it requires work, though, Patty. It definitely requires work. It doesn't change on its own. And unfortunately, I feel bad for anybody who has to try to get through it by themselves. Yes, you can get through it, but at times you have to reach out to help. So let's go through this again. Number one tonight was acknowledge your pain. All right, we talked about that. You have to acknowledge the situation that you're in. Number two, accept the grief can trigger many different and unexpected emotions. Number three, understand that your grieving process will be unique to you. Yes, everybody grieves their own way, even though it may seem similar to somebody else. Number four, seek out face-to-face support from people who care about you or specialists like myself. Reach out. That was a great time to reach out and set up a call with me, because you're going to need somebody to help you through that, and also to hold you accountable to things that need to be done to get you out of that grief situation that you're in. And I will put my information in the chat room in a second before we get to the end of this. Number five, support yourself emotionally by taking care of yourself physically. Remember that you have to eat. Remember that exercise is okay. Remember that you still have to do the things physically that will help get you past some of the emotion that you'll deal with. And Wednesday, we're going to deal with the emotional and physical symptoms of grief, because I want to talk about what it looks like, the tangible looks to it. And number six, recognize the difference between grief and depression. And it is very, very important that you understand that. Oh, let me see something here. I missed it in the chat room what Patty said here. I lost the cue. Okay. Fortunate brain cancer. My condolences, Patty. I'm sorry to hear that. And anybody that loses a child, it is just difficult to hear and difficult to deal with. But I'm sorry. And if there's anything that I can do, and I can offer my prayers and anything else, by all means. But that is something that's difficult for anybody, because as they say, we're not supposed to outlive our children. And I'm sorry that that she passed. If you don't mind me asking, how was that, Patty? Because I think another thing too is you have to give yourself time. Also, ladies and gentlemen, is that we're not going to heal overnight, and you're going to have bouts of emotion at different times. And it's very important that you understand that and be prepared for that. I'll give you something else here. So if anything that I said tonight resonates with you and you feel you need to talk more, talk to somebody, it's easy for grief to turn into physical pain. Yes. I'm glad you said that, Patty, because I'm going to deal with that on Wednesday. Wednesday at 9:30. Part 2 to this. I'm going to deal with the emotional symptoms and the physical symptoms of grief. It's 1, 2, 3. I just wrote down a few. So I have 5 emotional symptoms of grief, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 physical symptoms of grief. So we're going to try to get in all 11 on Wednesday. So I know she passed in 2004. It's been a roller coaster, and I'm sure. The reason why I just asked that, I just wanted to get an idea of the time, and it's never going to be 100% okay, but I did work with a client, and I know that she was saying some of the same things. That's why I asked, because it takes time, and you're always going to deal with the emotion. So again, my condolences, and thank you for sharing that information with us, Patty. I appreciate you. Latoya says some people expect a time frame for somebody to deal with grief. Thank you. That's exactly what I was getting at. The reason why I asked is that sometimes when you look at, and I'm glad that Patty shared this, because if a person tells you 20 years later they're still dealing, you can't say, girl, it's been that long. Stop. Don't do that. Again, everybody's grief is unique, and you cannot put a time frame. And Toya, I'm so glad you said that. You cannot put a time frame on how somebody is supposed to feel about what they lost. Because here's the thing, they're never going to be over. They're just going to learn how to deal with their emotion. My grandmother passed, let's see, KL 6-7 years ago. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't stop and go, sometimes I wish she was here. But what catches me is that I then go, but no, I don't want her back as she was when she passed of liver cancer. I know her in my mind as the woman that raised and gave me the strong insight to not only the Lord, but just how to live life. And I know and I feel that way about my mom. When I think about it, I just saw it today. They sent me the program, and I saw her picture. I had a physician tell me it's been 14 months. You should be over. And I would have got a new physician, Patty. I'm not even gonna lie. No disrespect. Patty said that I had a physician tell me it's been 14 months. You should be over by now. And I would have got a new physician, Patty, because let me tell you something. If somebody told me right now, your grandmother died and 7 years ago, you should be over by now, they may get punched in the mouth. I ain't even gonna lie. Because when I think of all the things that she wasn't here to experience. Now, we found out about my daughter, let's see, it's you did. There we go, Pat. That's what I'm talking about. Great to hear. Let's see, it's 2020, so that would have been 2013. July 3rd is when she passed. We lost that July. We lost my grandmother. That September, we lost my mother-in-law. Before KL was born, which would have been that March, after KL was born. So about a year later, we lost her grandmother, and then we lost my grandmother-in-law, and then my father-in-law. 3 to cancer and 1 to old age, but brought on by diabetes. And it just seemed like, my gosh. So my grandmother went to liver cancer, her mother went to lung cancer, her father had stomach cancer, and her grandmother diabetes. So it's been tough. But one of the things that I know that the Lord has prepared me for is how to be there for understanding my own pain and being okay with being transparent about it. Now, if anybody's read my book, From Gigolo to Jesus, you know I don't sugarcoat. I put my dirt out there. I have. As I said to you before, I put my memoir out there because I put my life to that point in the book so folks could understand who I am and what I've been. So as a crisis specialist, I use the gifts that God has given me, and part of that is to be able to understand people while they're in pain and be okay with what I'm going to hear, be okay with what I'm going to see, and be okay with the emotions that's going to fill a session, a room, whatever. And sometimes I've been on the streets and have had to help strangers that I don't know just because I could sense the pain that they was in. My son always jokes and says, Dad, you talk to everybody. My gosh, I do. because the Lord has given me a spirit of discernment that allows me to understand when to show up, to be there for them. And that's what I do. So this is something that I didn't just decide to do. It's something that God created me to do. And so I definitely understand. And I want to appreciate all of you guys for being on tonight as you go through whatever you're going through. And I know I've talked to a couple of you privately, and I know some of the things that you've gone through. And I know some of you have placed it out in the open, what you've dealt with. But I can tell you this, and I want to say this before I go. Two things. One, as I said right here, if you need to talk to me, if you need to set up a free call with me, there it is right there, bit.ly/Coach Keith. And then you can, if you need somebody to set up regular sessions with, by all means, I'm here. This is what I do, because this is how I give back to the world as a child. But one of the things that I can tell you is that what I've learned over the years is that when you see me put hashtag, we can fix this. The reason why I put that hashtag, the reason why I created that hashtag, and I'm going to put it up here now because it's coming to the bottom of the hour. I'm not going to stay past 10:30. I don't want to keep you guys any longer than I have to, but I enjoy the time on. Wait, let me see what said. You have a gift. I needed to hear this. Thank you, Patty. Takes with the Lord. He knew we needed to be on with each other right here, right now, because he's present. And I believe that, and I thank you for that. That what brings me to the table when I come every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This is why I show up for a message just like that, because I believe that, Patty. I believe I needed to be here, and I needed to see what you wrote, and you needed to see what I say, because guys, believe it or not, and I know it's going to sound crazy. So if you're not a child, if you're not a person of faith, you're not going to understand what I'm about to say. What Patty just typed when she said, "I have a gift. I needed to hear this message." I was just about to say that I don't know who needed to hear this tonight, but I know that I needed to be on tonight. Now, I had spoken to one person earlier and said to them, "I'll be on tonight," because I know we've talked, and I know that they're going through a loss recently themselves. And I know for myself, dealing with the loss of my mother, and it's only been a couple of weeks now, less than a month, that when we share our pain, now hear me on this, when we share our pain, we actually strengthen each other, because we all understand hurt. Our grieving is unique, but what ties us together as humans is we understand happiness and we understand pain. It's Frankie Beverly singing Joy and Pain. And the reason why that song resonates with everybody is because we all love to feel joy, and we all understand the pain of being hurt, and we all understand pain. And when we're able to allow each other to hold each other up, not only do we become more of what God created us, we actually heal each other. That's why my hashtag, we can fix this. Any videos that you see, guys, you see me post every day. I post something every morning on Instagram and on my Facebook page. And at the end of every video, I say, remember, we can fix, because I believe, and I'm not saying it because it's a learned thing, it's because I believe it. I believe God has given us everything we need to fix all the problems that we have, even this nasty coronavirus. I believe that if people start listening to each other and caring about the well-being of each other, we could corner this virus and start to fix it. I believe that. That's why my hashtag is we can fix this. That's why I know somebody needed to hear this tonight. So Patty, thank you. You have no idea how much you've helped me tonight. And to everybody else that's here, I pray that I've given you something to go with tonight. I pray now, if you're on Facebook, that you'll like this, share this. And if you want to support, well, you already know where you can get my books. My books are on my website, braveandpublic.com. Actually, I'll throw the link up. I forgot to put it in the caps tonight. So I'm putting it in the chat room for you tonight. So if anybody wants to purchase my books, if you've already, that's fine. Make sure that you leave a review for me. And also, you know that I'm here to help counsel, to help offer. Let me see, make sure I got that right there. So, and I'm going to put my link back. So there it is in the chat room. It should have came up for everybody, but I'm going to put my my link. If anybody needs to speak to me directly, if you need to set up a free Zoom call, first call is free, guys. And the reason why is because if I can help you, I won't hurt you. I will gladly tell you I'm not the person to help you, and I'm not going to take money from you just because. Won't do that. But I will try to work with you to find the person that can help you, because I'd be doing you a disservice if I know I can't help you and I'm just trying to take your money. Because believe it or not, when people are suffering from grief and of course depression, that's the easiest time for them to be manipulated and have money taken from them. That is why, unfortunately, a lot of our church leaders get themselves in trouble. They get caught with their hands in the cookie jar because people came to them in an honest position of pain. And then the person took advantage because they were defenseless. You can't do that. And I don't do that. And my 22 years in the classroom has prepared me to how to deal with people, because when you deal with other people's children for 22 years, you learn how to not make it about you while trying to give to as many as you can. So trust me, if you've never worked in the inner city in Toya, I know you know what I'm talking about. And T to the Y, I know you know as well. When you're working with other people's children and you got to come into a building and you know that they don't have, and you got to try to give, that is not the time to be trying to take advantage of anybody. But again, I want to say to all of you, thank you so much tonight. You have made my night. Tune in Wednesday, 9:30. We're going to deal with the emotional and the physical symptoms of grief. 5 emotional symptoms I want to discuss, 6 physical symptoms, and there's probably more, but I'm only going to use that many because I don't want to take up more than an hour. I'll go an hour if need be. I don't want to go more than an hour. And then Friday, I want to talk about the Kubler-Ross chart, which is the 5 stages of grief, because I want to show you how I use that in other capacities too. So Friday is going to be the 5 stages of grief. But Wednesday, we're going to deal with the emotional and physical symptoms of grief. Toya says, yes, sir, definitely know your problems don't matter. You're there for them. Exactly. You check your problems at the door. And I would always, before I walk through the door, Toya, or every time the bell rang for the next class, I would say showtime. And one of the mentees that I work with who's teaching in Brooklyn, I believe, is it Madison? I think she's at Madison. I'm not sure if she's still there. She hit me up on Facebook a couple of years ago and she said, you know, I still yell showtime when the bell rang after sitting under you for that whole year and watching you work. And she said, I realized it one day when the bell rang and I said showtime. And I said, wow, I'm sounding like Mr. B. But you know what I was happy about? That she was still in the game. And I remember when she first started as a first-year teacher, I didn't think she was going to make it because she was struggling. But she fought hard to learn her craft, and she's in the game, and she's still helping children. I think it's been 12 years now. Let's see, I think she came in 05 or 06. So I think it's been 14 years now. But yeah, I started back in 95. So, and I left the game in 2016. And I loved it. Loved it. 21 years, not 22. But yes, that's how you get through, Toya. You say a prayer in the car, and right before you walk through the door, you go showtime. And you go in and you get the kids all you got. Let me tell you what my mentor shared with me, and I will get ready to get off of this. My mentor, who was a former Black Panther, his name was Genghis Noor. He's actually the father of one of the gentlemen in X-Clan, the rap group. And he HBCU graduate. He was in Newsday, not new as a new U.S. News top 100 teachers. He was number 50, and he used to say to me, "You want to stay around a long time teaching?" I said, "Of course." He said, "Mean what you say to these kids, and don't F with their minds." And he didn't say F. He said the whole thing. He said, "Don't F with their minds." And I said, "That's it." He said, "That's it." And he said, "Because what Black children need is to know that you're real." And then he extended, he said, and then understand, every child that you ever teach, Black, white, or indifferent, needs to know that your words matter and that you're not going to play with their minds. He said, but even more so with Black children, because they have society already beaten them. And what I realized from when I first walked into that building in Canarsie is that I made sure that was part of my mantra. Never lied to children. And I made sure, even if it was some of the worst news on the planet, I told them, but then I stayed right there with them. I've dealt with murders. I've dealt with rapes. I've dealt with assaults. I've dealt with abuse. I've dealt with molestation. Oh, yeah, they smell fake like a shark, Toya. They know when you're fake. That's why when you see new teachers struggling and kids are just giving them the business, it's because they didn't take the kids serious and they didn't come in with an understanding of how to reach urban kids. Urban kids are not stupid. They've just been raised and not understand the power of education. There's a difference. Stupid is stupid. Like Forrest Gump says, stupid is as stupid does. And it took me a while to understand how live that line was. That is a fantastic line when you stop and think about it. Stupid is as stupid does. But the one thing urban kids are not, they're not stupid. They're just misinformed and not taught completely. That's where we come in. And if we can fill in that gap, some of the most gifted children have come out of urban environments. I'm a product of one. And I got 2 master's degrees on that wall back there. And I got 4 degrees overall. I'm an honest ghetto kid from 40 projects to heart of South Jamaica, Queens. So who knew? My mom knew, because she said, the hood is where we live. It is not how we think. And I've never forgotten that. And I've never launched myself so far that I can't see down to where I've come from. So I'll always be a Southside Jamaica, Queens, tried and true Negro from the hood. I was about to say something else. But at the end of the day, my job is to save lives. And I can't do that if I don't put myself in a position to understand how to do it. So T to the Y says they honest for sure, especially adolescents. Yes, sir. That's the urban part. Urban kids don't have to be nothing but honest. And they're going to tell you about yourself. And if you wore this on Tuesday and it's Friday, yo, Mr. B, you ain't got no laundry. You wore that on Tuesday. Don't try to get past them. Yo, even the ones. Hey, Mr. B, you had them shorts on the other day. You didn't wash them? Thank you so much, Patty. But trust me, guys, I hope that I've given you something to think about tonight. I prayed that I was able to lift some of you up off the sadness that you're dealing with. Patty, thank you for sharing with us. T to the Y, thank you for sharing. Toya, thank you for sharing. Flex, I know you're somewhere around. Thank you for sharing. Nikita, as always, sister, thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you coming in. Vanessa, thank you for coming in. I'll definitely look to check you out and see what you posted. So I appreciate that. So guys, listen, Wednesday, 9:30, we're going to cover the physical. Let me find it here. Here we go. Wednesday, we're going to cover the symptoms of grief, the emotional and physical symptoms. Hope you'll show up. I love the conversations. You know that, guys. I will stay as long as you guys are kicking it back to me, because I love to talk to you guys. I don't ever want to just sit here and monologue. If I think I'm getting like that, I'll just check out after a half an hour. But if there's conversation, I'm here for it. And I love it. And thank you for sharing. Toya, thank you for sharing. You're always great when you get here. T to the Y is always my brother. I appreciate you. Thank you for showing up. Patty, thank you for showing up over on Periscope. I hope you're beating a hole in that computer. I want to see 1,000, 1,000,000 hearts from you, Patty. Let's go. I want to see 1,000,000 hearts. But here's what I wanted to say this. You guys on Facebook, make sure that you like this. Make sure that you share this. And hopefully I've given you reason to support me. You know that I work for myself. You know I'm building my counseling practice here. And I already have my program at one of the detention centers. I'm working on trying to get my Young Kings mentor program in some of the other schools here in Delaware, but I'm working at it. I have my Delaware vendor's license. So I'm trying. This COVID thing really kicked me for a loop, but I'm super excited because I have it right here. My counseling business is official. I can't show you everything, but there it is, officially from the state. So now I own a business in New York and I own a business here in Delaware. So I am trying. So I am starting from the grassroots. So this is what it is. And so I'm super excited. Thank you. I will see you on Wednesday, guys. I appreciate you. Love you. God bless, guys. Have a good night. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for showing up.